I'm Gabe Lullo, and welcome to the Do Hard Things podcast. We're talking to go-to-market leaders and entrepreneurs who have conquered the challenges, the hustle, and the grind. Get ready for real talk, real insights, and no fluff.
But the hardest thing in the world right now is not actually closing deals, it's actually getting somebody's attention.
If you don't have that hook in that first 5 to 10 seconds, guess what? They're going to scroll to the next one.
You need to go in and you need to make it sound like yourself. That's the biggest piece of the puzzle. And I promise you, we can all tell.
The people that are trolls and the people that are haters never done the thing that you're doing.
I love doing this podcast because I get a front row seat to some of the greatest minds in sales.
Gone are the days of saying stay in your lane. When you're an executive leader and you're an enterprise-wide leader, there are no lanes. You've got to be partners.
Curiosity is like when the type of questions you ask is sometimes the value that you bring.
I need you to tell me when you're ready to buy or what you're ready to do. And I think it's changed so much into like adding more value. And if you're not doing that, then you're definitely going to come off as desperate.
High pressure selling is like a dinosaur tactic at this point.
No parent is like, oh, you should be a salesperson when you grow up, right? Everyone's like a doctor, lawyer, whatever crap. It's never salespeople.
It's not your job to motivate people. It's your job to find motivated people.
It's not cockiness. It's not arrogance. It's confidence knowing I know this and I know that I can help you.
From where I started to where I am today is all because I learned how to sell.
And there's too many people who have only been doing this for 5 freaking minutes. Sit down, close your mouth, actually go out there and get yourself beat up, then come back and tell me if something is dead or not.
That is exactly why I started this podcast, because right there, that's the epitome of doing hard things.
Welcome back to the Do Hard Things podcast with Lexi and Gabe. Today's guest, Jack Frimston, is the co-founder and director of We Have a Meeting, recently ranked the UK's second best sales agency. He's a coach, content creator, podcaster, and now officially a published author. In a market where inboxes are crowded and buyers are ghosting, more than ever, Jack's mission is simple: help businesses with great solutions actually get in front of the people they can help. His new book, Sales is Therapy, written with co-author Zach Thompson, pulls back the curtain on the mental and emotional side of selling, tackling not just tactics, but the mindset, resilience, and self-awareness needed to succeed in today's brutal prospecting environment. Jack, welcome to the show.
Welcome, everyone, back to the Do Hard Things podcast with Gabe and Lexi. I am so excited to have you on the line here, Jack. What's going on, man? Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Absolutely. I love talking to you. I love watching your content. I think you're the funniest person on LinkedIn. And speaking of comedy and being on the stage, you have an amazing background that most don't know that typically doesn't line up with running a sales development team. So walk us through it, man. What's your origin story and how did you get into this? Because most people, they don't go to college to get into sales. So how did you maybe fall into it, start it, get into it?
Yeah,
I do it by accident. Tell me your story.
I definitely didn't raise my hand at 8 years old and say, "Mummy, I want to work in sales." I'll give you the too long don't read, but basically my background had always been, since like the age of 16, obsessed with music and performing. So I was always in bands. I went to university. I studied drama and musical theatre, and when I finished university, I started a band. We were a boy band. We're like the British NSYNC, you can say, for all your American listeners. And the only thing that I could do, obviously, there's no money in music, as we know. The only thing I could do alongside that, the only job that was hiring that would take me on with no experience was sales. And I was somebody that had the gift of the gab. So my life was always these two paths that kind of correlated with each other. One, trying to make it in the music industry, but also 9 to 5, picking up the phone, speaking to people, and making a little bit of extra pocket money. It got to a point where 6 years into the band, we'd had some great ups and downs. We'd gigged with the Beach Boys. We'd done some brilliant things, but then we got dropped by our manager and our promoter in the same call. So then I was like, what do I do now? And being a young, crazy, adventurous lad, I ran off and joined, I know you joined the circus, I joined a cruise ship. So for a couple of years, I was a lead singer in a band on a cruise ship. And then COVID hit And obviously, Donald Trump said no more cruise ships and definitely no more cruise ship singers. So I came back to the UK and I was approaching 30, thinking, what do I do now? Sales is the only thing I know. So I got into sales. I was thinking, do I go back on the ships? Do I not? I was at that junction in my life of what am I really doing with my life? And my best friend Zach, he rang me one day and said, I've had a brainwave. I'm going to start my own business. And a few months later, me and him were on the journey of Wham.
I love it. And I love the name too. I'm a big George Michael fan. I'm sure there's some correlation there as well. But it's funny when you bring up my story a little bit. I'm a juggler and I've always been on stage and in theater. And, I think sales has that, knack for people who really feel like they need to be in the limelight or are great in front of people. You also said you have the gift of gab. Where did you learn that? Do you think, salespeople are born with that and they're just great talkers, or did that rub off in your family? Or how did you have that gift of gab that you like to say it? I hear it all the time too.
So I had the gift of the gab. I think I still have the gift of the gab, but I don't necessarily think that makes you a good salesperson. So some of my first early sales roles when I was like 21, it was the gift of the gab, and it was just me talking at people. And you know what? If you talk at people enough, you will make sales. Okay, I think anybody can book a meeting if you follow a script, you pick up a phone, you will book meetings. Doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean that it was like intended to be that way. So I think from a young age. It's weird, and now having children of my own, like seeing what they naturally like gravitate towards. I went to football, I went to karate, but then my mum sent me to drama club at 6 years old, and I was like, "This is me. This is a bit of me." And I think more so what I've learned from like the performing side, and I see this sometimes, is it's that rejection. Like if you are trying to make it in the music industry, the dancing industry, the acting industry, whatever it is, you know that you're going to face rejection. Like you've seen it in the movies. Everybody's seen a movie about somebody that wants to make it but never makes it. I think like having that like scar tissue and like being, well, actually, what does it mean if a few people say they're not interested or they don't want to talk right now? It's not the end of the world. So I think ex performers definitely help make great salespeople.
Totally agree. And the title of your book, Sales is Therapy, definitely bold. When did that concept first hit for you both? And was it a particular moment, a trend you saw, or a conversation between the two of you that really sparked that title?
So Zach messaged me and said, I've got an idea for a talk. Like if we're doing some public speaking, it should be called Sales is Therapy, because what we've done over the last few years is, and you've got to remember that everything is a remix anyway when it comes to selling. So you've got all of these different theories and methodology, but most of it is probably baked in Socratic method and like asking brilliant questions. And so is the CBT method, so cognitive behavioral therapy. So much of it is taken from these Greek philosophers, and we realized the best selling techniques are actually therapy techniques also. So like we use our cold calling framework that's based on Alcoholics Anonymous. So can they admit to have a problem, and can they admit to be motivated to solve that? And in the UK, we have something called the Samaritans, which is like a helpline if you're feeling suicidal or distressed. And the Samaritans have a rule that you can't talk about yourself. And I think if salespeople had that rule when they're cold calling or they're closing or whatever it is they're doing, well, I'm not going to talk about me. I'm only going to talk about you. I think that's what makes brilliant salespeople. So we borrowed, stealed, begged, and done all those wonderful things with these techniques to create an amalgamation of our own methodology that we call sales as therapy.
I love that. And you talked about how, people who talk at people, well, they're going to get some meetings, but that's not the best salespeople. Obviously, you're alluding to what I believe you feel is the best salespeople, and I agree with. There are those ones who know how to ask amazing, incredible questions. So I'd like to dive deeper into this book here because it's quite impressive. Walk us through it because you said where it's coming from and how you built it, but how long did it take, and why write a book? What was the reason for it? Was it something that you just wanted to let out, or is it something that you really thought the market was missing? I'd love to hear more.
There, I mean, the market definitely wasn't missing another sales book. Let's be honest. Like there are so many different sales books, and there are some fucking brilliant ones. Do you know what I mean? Like Gap Selling by Keenan. I love Chris Voss. I know it's not necessarily a sales book. You've got Sandler. You've got some Robert Greene stuff. I think what it felt like it was maybe missing for us is like we've got all of these ideas and it stems from communication and mindset, things that we do internally, things that we've named like our own pieces of IP. Well, we train it anyway. We teach it to our team. Can we just have it in one place? And the first book, I don't know if you've seen the actual physical copy. The first book was a thimble size of it, and it was just a few chapters. And we was like, let's rip that up. That's not good enough. Let's do it again. And we really padded it out. And we wanted a book that the design of the book was: can you just take one chapter, just read one chapter a week, and then implement that straight away? So whether that be something for your mindset when it comes to facing rejection, can it be something when it comes to questioning, closing, call openers, etc., things like that. That is the goal. So can we make something that people are going to be able to use? And that's what we intended with sales as therapy.
I love that. Yeah, and having different chapters to break down different things is awesome. Can you break down maybe one of those chapters that you think is the most game changing for modern salespeople?
It's a good question. It's hard because there's so much in there when it comes to like questioning. Like there's two things in there that we break down. So I'll give you three things that we kind of and remember everything's a remix anyway. But there's one thing that we do called the test close. So we teach how to do a test close, and most people think a test close is something else. For us on cold calls, the test close would be where you build your ideal solution. So we use the IKEA bias. So the IKEA bias is if you've ever been to IKEA and had an argument with your partner when you're there and had some meatballs. I mean, that's standard when you go. But we value something that we build ourselves. So when you look at that wonky chest of drawers, you think, yeah, I made that. So the test close when calling is rather than kind of telling people what the agenda is for the next call, I'd say, Gabe, if we would sit down, what would you want to see on the next call? What would have to happen? What would be a good use of your time if we were to sit down? You tell me the dream scenario, you explain it, you build it yourself, and then very simply I say, okay, cool. When's good to do that? So you've already built it. I'm not shoehorning anything in. And then something else that I'd probably add on that as well. So like there's all these different techniques, but then we also have something called the evidence shelf. So this is to do with mindset. I think so many people struggle because they rely on how they feel in the moment rather than looking at their evidence. So if you've closed big deals, you've succeeded, or even if you've cold called and not died, that is evidence. So like when you go into the day and you feel nervous or you've got doubt, what is the piece of evidence that contradicts the feeling? So like asking yourself, is this true and is this useful, will probably help get you out of those funks. So that's our goal, is to make salespeople, I guess, more therapeutic, more human, and also get out their own way.
It's incredible. So this is all about sales not being transactional, right? So walk us through the emotional side, maybe even the psychological blind spot that you're thinking most salespeople have right now.
Where I see salespeople going wrong?
Yeah, emotion in a more of an emotional, psychological blind spot, like where's their thinking going wrong when they're getting started or trying to get to that next level.
So, as human beings, I mean, everything is baked in psychology. As human beings, we take action when there's a level of emotion, and we back it up with logic. Okay, so we think of like the pathos triangle when making a purchase of emotion, logic, and credibility. Does it tick all the boxes? But the first one to get there is the emotion. Because if somebody's not motivated to do something, there's not a level of emotion, they're going to be in this state of inertia. There's this phrase of like, sometimes if the situation was worse, you'd be better off. So many people are in relationships that are pretty bad, but they're not bad enough to leave the relationship. So if it was worse, you'd be better off because then you'd leave the relationship. So I think when it comes to salespeople, a lot of them go down this like logical path of what are you doing now? Why are you doing that? Like what does your tech stack look like? It doesn't matter. It's like, what is the problem they are struggling with? Why are they struggling with it? How long have they been struggling with it for? What is the effect of that problem existing? And where do they want to be? And that creates the gap. And if you can ask that in thought-provoking questions, that's when you'll find the emotion, and that's when you'll get somebody to make a decision. I think so many salespeople think it is just a case of I call people, and some people will admit they have it and want to make change, but that's not the case, and we all know that. But that's where salespeople are going wrong.
Yeah. And I'd love to dive deeper into the mindset and mental part about sales. What's your advice on how salespeople can handle rejection, ghosting, and the grind without really burning out?
I would say rejection and ghosting are completely different in terms of like how to handle them. But I think like how not to burn out is a great question, but it's your inability to handle like your emotions. That's what it is. You're too attached. So you're attached to the outcome. There's too much going on there. Um, so I think like when I think about like rejection, let's kind of go back a little while. So if we go back to the pathological, is that right? Did I say that right? I might have butchered that. Thousands of years ago. If we go back to the dinosaur times, we were primates, we were chimps, okay? And we had this fight or flight response. And the way that we lived is if you got rejected, you would be banished from the tribe. Okay. So the reason we love validation and we fear rejection is validation meant, Gabe, okay, you're top of the tribe, which means you can have your selection of the women and as much food and as much shelter as you want. So that's why we want to be validated, because it means, cool, I get to do what I was put on this earth to do, is procreate and survive. If you were rejected, well, you'd be thrown out the tribe and you'd be kind of banished. You'd be mauled to death by a saber-toothed tiger, or you'd starve to death. You wouldn't have resources. So ultimately, rejection equals death. Now, this has been baked into us for thousands of years, and it still exists. And it's good that it exists, because if there is a fire in the house, this fight or flight system will go off and it will kind of get us out the house alive. But unfortunately, we don't know the difference anymore. So we feel like rejection does equal death. So it stops so many people from doing the things that they want to do because they're scared of that rejection. I won't put up my hand in case people laugh at me and my voice croaks. I won't ask that person out in case they say no and everybody laughs. People think you're weird for that. You're not weird, you're just wired. But if you can logically break it down that actually this is how I am, but that doesn't mean that, well, then once you start to overcome it, that kind of helps you through the process. The ghosting thing is another interesting one, but just touch on, and why I would kind of say you can't get frustrated about ghosting is because I would say if you are getting ghosted, it is a lesson as to there are always going to be people that ghost you, but probably somewhere where you've gone wrong, you've not asked the right question, or you've asked something that you shouldn't have, or you've not confirmed the next steps. So if I was having a conversation, we said, okay, what do you want me to do next? Send me that email and I'll come back to you. Okay, if I don't hear back from you, what would you like me to do? Okay, call me. And if I call you and you don't come back, or I don't hear from you, then what? Send me an email. Okay, one last time. If I call you, email you, and I bombard you and I don't hear back from you, should I assume you're not interested? Yes. I'm no longer getting ghosted. I've now got a plan of attack to follow. If you don't come back, you're not ghosting me. I know you're not interested. Salespeople are afraid of asking these questions, which get them to a point where they are ghosted.
That's incredible, man. You're crushing it. I love it. You're the best of the best. You say something at the end of every tagline on your LinkedIn, remember you will die. Why do you say that? Why is that so important to have that at the end of your signature? And why do you feel like your audience needs to be reminded of that every time you post? Because I love it. And I just want to know, like, tell us why you're doing that.
I don't just think the audience need to be reminded. I think everybody needs to be reminded. I mean, we take life far too seriously. Like that is just like standard. But unfortunately, some of us will probably get 83 years, which is ever the average of a lifespan. Most of us won't get that, but we're all going to die. And I think we put so much time and worry into things that just don't matter. And like in 5 years, you probably won't even remember them. So, like these rejections, especially in sales, I think it's advice for life, but in sales, like it's a minor rejection. It doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. You're going to be dead like one day, and I think it started off as a reminder to myself, and a lot of my content was themed around mindset, so it worked. And then it kind of transpired into like, well, it'll be this thing that I just do. But actually, it's more for me. Every day when I write that out, that's a little reminder. And I keep like a little coin, which has got a skull on my desk. And there's other memorabilia about remember you will die. But it's just that reminder that if today was the last day, would I spend it worrying, moaning, complaining? All of this as well is like stolen and borrowed from Stoicism and Buddhism, and this was something like I got into around about 5-6 years ago and like fell into a bit more. But like life is so short. Like it don't take it too seriously. One day you'll be dead.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, obviously, your LinkedIn really stands out to both of us. And something you said on there that really stuck out is for people who still believe sales is actually a skill. Why do you think that still needs to be said?
Because I think sales used to be a profession, and probably more so, Lexi, in America than anywhere else. And I know that there are other countries now. I think South Africa is treated like a profession, but in the UK, let's not like be around the bush. It's what the idiots do. It's what the guys that didn't get the grade in school do. It's the guys that want to be the singer but weren't good enough to be the singer. Is what they fall into. So it's like this thing, and then we feel this like shame at like the family barbecue of, oh, what are you doing now? Are you still doing your band? No, but I'm this commercial account director. You work in sales, and that's okay. Do you know what I mean? People need to have stuff sold to them, and I think if we break it down into like it's this 50-50 split. There are people out there that are solving problems. And I remember you, Gabe, saying like one of your early clients was Zoom Info. It's like they probably didn't know how to take it to market. And you've been part of that journey that solved a problem and helped them. And now they're doing these wonderful things. And you go, oh, I played my part in that. Whatever you sell, like there are people out there that have the problem that you solve. And if there are no people out there that have the problem that you solve, you've got a shit go to market fit. Stop selling it. The three things I say is like, do you have a product you believe in? Do you have a company you believe in and a leader you believe in? If you've got all three of those, you could be an excellent salesperson. You just need to refine the skills. If you've got none of those, quit, get rid now. But sales is a dirty word because we all typically think, and sorry to blame the Americans again, but we think of that 1950s car salesman that had all the knowledge and all the power and all the information. And I'll tell you it, and you've got to believe me because there is no alternative. As we move into this world now where information is abundant, or we can make our own decisions. But actually, we make our own decisions. That's what I'm saying. We have our own biases. So we need brilliant salespeople to challenge our biases, to challenge our beliefs. I sit here and go, I don't need a coach. I'm fine. I don't need a coach. I'm good with where I am. I'm doing these things. But a coach would ask me the questions to probably establish where I am and where I need to be. So we need brilliant salespeople because they do solve problems and they get people to amazing places.
I love this. I love this. And it's okay. You can blame the Americans on car salesmen. I feel the same way. So your agency, we have a meeting, Wham, right? You had clearly built this just incredible voice, this awesome vibe. And we see that through social. What's been that guiding principle behind how you show up, especially when so many agencies in this space look and sound the exact same?
I think we've always wanted to kind of do things our way, and it's not standing out for standing out's sake. But I think like me and Zach have been friends now since we're like 14 years old. So we're talking 18, 19 years, and we have probably been a bit weird to other people and doing things our way. But I think it's just not being afraid to work in sales, being proud to work in sales, and actually putting the customer first. Like we could have been richer quicker by signing people up that we couldn't help. And that's the truth. Like the amount of inbound inquiries and leads we generate, but we turn away so much business because we think, can we actually solve that problem? What are the problems we're going to run into? Can we actually do that? Their expectations are off. We don't actually want to work with them. If our goal was just sign as many clients as possible, we would have been richer quicker. That's why I said richer quicker. But I think in the long run, I think so many people like negate the long game of like the consistency. I had a new business meeting before this, and I said, "What are your expectations?" He said, "Well, I was recommended to you by a marketing executive that worked at a company in Czech Republic." And I said, "I know what company that is. I worked with them 4 years ago. I worked with this company 4 years ago, and somebody down the line has just recommended me." And I think your reputation, like Rory Sutherland says, trust grows like a coconut tree and falls like a coconut. So like if you do the right things, you will be rewarded. But like don't worry about the short term gratification. Worry about the long picture. And I think that's what me and Zach have been thinking about building, of like how can we create something great over time rather than something great very, very quickly.
Love it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you've also built such a strong presence online, your podcast, content on LinkedIn. What role do you think that really plays in shaping the way that you are selling now?
That's a great question. The podcast has definitely improved questioning, I think, for me personally. But I think the I think it's a, whether this is going to sound big headed or what, but I think the podcast is a great showcase of kind of what we do as salespeople, because I listen to a lot of podcasts. I was listening to one this morning and it was brilliant, but it was chaotic because it was these two hosts and a guest talking over each other, and the host was talking for 10 minutes about a story, and then the guest was interrupting. And then, whereas with the podcast, if you are invited to be a podcast guest, it's all about you. And Gabe, you've been through this, so I hope that you felt this, where it's like, this is about you. Let's ask these questions and get the best out of you. It's the same in sales. It's all about the other party. Me and Zach have our own chaotic mini episode where we interrupt each other and we shout at each other. That's fine. I think the podcast, I want it to be a reflection of, I watched that. Oh, these are the kind of guys. If I now go and get in touch and have a discovery call or a chat, that's what it will feel like. It should feel like you're a guest on the podcast, not that I'm talking at you.
It's incredible. So I'm going to throw you a curveball. I want you to prioritize right now, and it's of course 2025, 2026, the channels that you think are most effective, right? Because we're getting bombarded with email automation, AI everywhere, phone call is dead, podcast and content creation. Where do you focus your efforts for your team when it comes to serving your clients right now in this landscape that we live in?
So everyone always says podcasts, no, not podcasts, channels are dying. I don't think channels are dying. I think channels are getting more and more saturated. Now, content is probably like one of the number one channels in terms of like what everyone's going towards. But I would say that content is driving inbound, and now there are outbound strategies that you can do. But I think if you're responsible for a pipeline, what can you do day in, day out that actually drives things forward? So you can create a pretty meme, you can post a lovely video. It doesn't mean anything, because where the magic happens is if you engage with the people that engage with that. So that's the form of outbound. I think there are two. I think LinkedIn and email probably work. Like I know they work, but they're saturated. I think from recent studies, you get a 1.5 percentage positive reply. That's not a meeting. That's just a positive reply. We we double down on the phone. I've got 20 reps that are using the phone day in, day out. They're dialing from 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock, because we know that if you get hold of the right people and you use the right psychological principles, you will have conversations. I think another probably unsaturated market is direct mail, and direct mail is brilliant. And I've seen some amazing direct mail campaigns. Where direct mail campaigns go wrong is they send direct mail and they wait. The same as posting a reel on LinkedIn or other social media platforms and waiting. The art comes from the outbound. Sending something brilliant and not following it up with a phone call is ridiculous. So send something brilliant, follow up with a phone call. If you don't have a conversation, if you don't get that, follow up on other channels to get hold of those people. I know some guys that have just done a campaign where they sent a 7-foot report and they delivered it, hand delivered it to their office. That's going to get you noticed. It might not win you the business, but I promise you that will get somebody to get in contact with you. Okay. Now, by using the phone afterwards and like having that magic, that's That's where the gold is. So I think lead generation is a net, isn't it? There are all these different nets that you can use: SEO, LinkedIn, email. Give yourself the best chance. Have as many nets. That's why I post on LinkedIn. That's why we cold call. That's why I've got a webinar. That's why we've got a podcast. That's why we've got an outbound LinkedIn function. That's why we've got a newsletter. We've got all of these things because you want to make sure that when you throw the net out, you're grabbing as many fish as possible, and it's not just you and a harpoon sailing off into the distance.
I love it. So let's talk about comedy and laughter. I've been trying to be quiet because I want to not interrupt you, but I've been laughing the whole time on this show. I'm just on your quibs and your way of communicating. You are hilarious in your content on LinkedIn. I've watched you do mock phone calls as well, and you are hilarious there too. Why is comedy and that head interrupt so important? And do you think it's missing in most people who are making cold calls every day?
I think comedy is so important in cold calling, in content. I think in life, I think I heard something about like the different types of content that does well. It's like comedy, sexy, or educational. Sadly, I don't think I can do sexy or educational too well, so I so I lean into the comedy. But we take ourselves too seriously, like I was saying with the death thing.
Right.
You're ringing strangers up, and you're probably trying to sell them something like ink cartridges. Okay, your life is not that deep. Like we are not curing cancer over here. We're a lead generation company helping people get in front of more people. Okay, so like we're all going about our day to day, really busy, very serious. We're ringing all these serious people. If you can make somebody laugh, you're more likely to get through to the human part of the brain. They're going to remember you. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go out there and be a clown, and some people like don't want to like have that interaction, and you have to be able to mold dependent on who the person is. But like if you can make people laugh or smile, that's one way to like make them feel good. And I think that that's so important. And it's life is so short. Like we need to have a little laugh. But I think we see these CEOs and CMOs, and we think of them as really busy, important people. They still go to the same sort of toilets. They still do the same sort of things that we all do. Do you know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
we're not afraid of laughing. Everybody likes to laugh.
Yeah, I love that. How do you personally stay grounded when business gets really chaotic and you feel overwhelmed?
I think I'm very lucky that I run the business with two of my best friends. So we've got me and Zach, and we've got another friend who's a director who we call the third Jonas brother because he's not the one that's on the podcast and in the limelight. So we have each other to lean on. Um, so I think that that's important to have good people that you can speak to, but it also comes back to that like this this I think it was Marcus Aurelius, but this too shall pass. Like this moment won't last forever. It is chaotic. If you want to be an entrepreneur, like you have to accept the chaos. If you want to be in sales, you have to accept the fact that you will get rejected. That is life. Like it is inevitable. Like playing the game of life is you have to accept that you'll die. You can't deny that it's going to happen. If you're in sales, you'll get rejected. And if you're in business, there will be chaotic times, though there'll be so many good times as well. So I think it's hard to stay grounded. I wish I could say like here's a morning routine, but I think it's just remembering that it doesn't last forever. And actually, there would be an alternative where you could kind of say, I don't want this, but you also chose this.
Our audience is really a lot of brand new sellers getting into this, the SDRs, right? And what's one thing that the new salespeople listening, who may be just questioning whether they're cut out for this? What's an idea or a principle? Maybe it's from your book or just some advice that you would give to keep them on track and to stay long term.
I think success is everything can be broken down to a formula, can't it? So like what do you want to be? And I think the analogy I sometimes give is if you want to be Ed Sheeran, you probably have to be writing a song every single day, playing a gig every single day, and recording a song once a month. If you do those things for 10 years, you might not be Ed Sheeran, but you're doing the obvious thing for a ridiculous amount of time. So I think that's everything can be broken down to a formula. Reverse engineer it. Where do you want to be and why? So like he with a large enough why can bear anyhow. So what is the obvious thing that you need to do? How long do you need to do it for? And can you convince yourself that you're not smarter than you think you are? So do the obvious thing for an extraordinary amount of time without thinking that you're smarter than you are. Reverse engineer it and remember why you're doing those things on a daily basis. So the obvious things for salespeople is pick up the phone, speak to people, build pipeline. Just do that and say, I'm willing to do this for 5, 10 years. If you do it consistently and you try to get good at it, you won't be doing it for 5, 10 years. It'll probably be 2 years and you'll get there a lot quicker. But imagine that it's going to take forever.
I love that.
Amazing advice.
Yes, thank you so much for all the advice and everything that you've brought today. We're really excited for our audience to hear this. Where should people look for you, reach out to you if they're interested in learning more, and where can they get the book?
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. You've put me on the spot a few times, so good questions. Sales is Therapy, available on Amazon, or check us out on LinkedIn. We have a meeting podcast on all platforms. Jack Frimston.
Awesome. Jack, thank you so much. We appreciate the time. I'll let you get back to it and have a great day, buddy. For everyone listening, keep doing the hard things and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.